Welcome to the Homegrown podcast, a place where we share the truth about food and farming from our kitchen to yours. I'm your host, Liz Hazelmeyer, along with my husband, Joey.
Good afternoon.
And together we hope to educate, inspire, and equip you in your pursuit of true nourishment. Today's guest is Natalie Vaughn, and we are doing part 2 of the Real Food Journey.
Real Food Journey.
Second episode that we are recording, and we're super excited. Natalie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
We are so excited. We have poured over lots of submissions, and your story really stood out to me, and I'm excited to share that with our audience. So let's jump in.
Yeah, let's kick it off. Natalie, take us back to where it began. I mean, as early as you can go back in your family kind of life, where you got born, where you were born, what you know about your parents' early life, and then as that relates to kind of food growing up. Like what did meals look like, that kind of stuff?
Well, food was always, like, my family is a food family. And everybody who knows us knew we cook a lot, we eat a lot. That had its kind of own pros and cons. Getting used to cooking a lot hasn't been hard because that's just how I grew up. But there's also a very emotional attachment to food and food traditions there. But food was always it was a fun thing. And it was something we all enjoyed. It was a way for us to come together for holidays, but there was zero connection with food and health. Mm-hmm. It was like the only connection really there was maybe oh, you eat too much, you're going to gain weight. Mm-hmm. I remember my mom joining Weight Watchers. So there was a lot of, Weight Watchers crock-pot dinners and the points counting and all mm-hmm. that stuff. But it was mostly very positive about food from both of my parents. So yeah, I just remember learning how to cook from my grandma and both my aunts teaching me how to make food. And so yeah, there was never really any bad stuff about food. It wasn't seen as anything more important than a fun thing.
What were some of your favorite meals you can remember growing up?
Always the holiday meals. Because my parents, both sides of my parents, were very connected to where their parents came from. So my grandma on my mom's side was German, so we'd always make rouladen for Christmas. Mm. And then my grandma on my dad's side is Hungarian, and we'd make stuffed cabbage balls. And so yeah, the Christmas meals. And then growing up in Southern California, we'd always have tamales too. So I feel like there were always at least 4 Christmas dinners we'd have to space out.
I love that.
So yeah, it was great.
What's the German meal you just mentioned?
Rouladen. It is still one of my favorite things. You pound out, you can go to the butcher and ask for rouladen meat. A lot of them know what that is. Okay. But you can also just pound out skirt steak really thin. And inside goes bacon, onions, mustard, and a pickle spear. And okay. You roll it up, you brown it, and then you kind of cook it in a gravy. It is so good.
That sounds super good.
It sounds like a deconstructed Reuben almost.
Reuben sandwich?
Maybe just the pickle gives me that.
I don't know where. Yeah, I mean, it sounds really good.
Is that a stretch?
It's a bit of a stretch from the Reuben.
Well, did you ever eat sauerbraten or sauerkraut meals?
Yes,
Joey's his family is very German, and
we've talked about this a number of times. Sauerkraut, when I was growing up, was like a dish. It was not just the cabbage. Yeah, I know that. I know now.
Simmered with pork and stuff.
And it was so awesome. We ate things like goulash and sauerbraten, and oh my gosh, yeah, I'm a big fan. So. Growing up, favorite meal. What did family dinners look like? Were you guys eating dinner at the table together a lot? Was food a bring everybody to the table sort of situation, or was it a come as you go? What did meals look like?
We generally all ate together. We were homeschooled, so
nice.
I think that our dinner table was an extension of the learning. I would always remember hours after we finished eating, we were still sitting at the table having discussions. So that was always a really great thing.
That's beautiful. Did you enjoy the homeschool experience?
At the time, no. I hated every second of it. I wanted so desperately to have I feel like I didn't have a lot in common with the people I knew. Mm-hmm. It was a very, very small homeschool group. It was like a co-op of 20 families, and it was set up kind of like a school where you go twice a week to this church, and the different parents would teach different classes. And I just feel like I wanted more people to choose from for friends. that I had more in common with. But then as soon as I was done with high school and I went out into the real world and I saw what other people who weren't homeschooled were like, I was like, thank you so much, Mom and Dad.
That's so funny.
So homeschooled all the way through high school then?
Yes.
Right on. Did you do any post high school school? Did you go to college, trade school, anything like that?
No, actually, while I was still in my senior year of high school, I started working in restaurants.
No way.
And then ran my own catering business for a while before I joined the Navy. And then while in the Navy, I'm still in the Navy, but while in the Navy, I got my bachelor's in hospitality management.
Oh, fun.
So where did you, okay, so wow, a lot there. So you ran a catering business. So talk to me about how you got interested in catering in the first place, and how did you learn to cook?
Just kind of from my aunt and my dad and my grandma, but because I was homeschooled and both of my parents actually worked. So my mom worked out of the home, and my dad worked a lot from home. And then when we were in high school and junior high, actually, he started his own gun store. And so we were kind of on our own. Like, we taught ourselves a lot of like homeschool curriculum. Like we'd go over to other friends' houses and their moms would be teaching them, and we were like, what is this? Like we just kind of sat down with our textbooks and taught ourselves math. But because we didn't have a parent who was home to like drive us to music and sports and all these other things, it was like I'd get up at 6 a.m. I'd get all my homework done in a couple hours, and then I would spend the rest of the day making a 5-course meal for my family, because that was just like my hobby. It was what I like to spend my time doing. So I was very self-taught.
Wow, that's awesome.
So growing up, a lot of early introduction into food, sounds like, and responsibility around food. What about like health? So do you recall like being sick? Do you remember ever like dealing with like doctors? I know you're homeschooled. What did that kind of world, like the health world, look like in your family early on?
So if you talk to anybody who knew me as a child, the first thing, like the thing they remember about Natalie is I was always sick. And every time I'd go to class, like go back to school, it'd be like, wow, you're still alive. I still run into people who is like, wow, I haven't seen you in like 10 years. They're like, wow, you're still alive.
Wow.
I was just sick all the time. And I think what probably started that was, and I don't know where this came from, or because I feel like our family attitude about food was really healthy. So I don't know why anytime I was left alone with sugar, I just like off the walls sugar consumption, just completely berserk. It was like every time we were at a Christmas party or something, it was like, I'm going to see how many cookies I can eat in one sitting. I don't know what that was about, but I just remember like every single Christmas I was sick. I remember the first Christmas I wasn't sick. I think I was like 14 years old, and it was like, wow, this has never happened before. So I was sick a lot. And then sometime when I was like 7 years old, I got strep throat like 7 times in 1 year.
Goodness gracious.
And so 7 rounds of antibiotics, and I still, it like kills me just thinking about this. But so the doctor was just like, yeah, we should probably get your tonsils taken out. So I got my tonsils removed. And I remember still getting sick after that. And they were like, well, we don't know what to tell you. Sucks to be you. So after that, it was like probably within a year, I started having all sorts of gut issues. So I think around like 8 or 9 years old, I'm trying to remember, it was sometime around then, I started getting all these tests done. I know we went to the emergency room a couple times because I just had horrible stomach pain. My regular Saturdays would look like enemas on the floor with my mom, just like crying because it's like, why can't I be normal? It was pretty rough. Like I had, how many 9-year-olds do you know who've had a colonoscopy? Like
literally none.
Yeah. So it was like the weird test. You drink the dye and they do the scan, MRIs, CAT scans, like everything, all these tests. And finally they sent me to this children's hospital in LA to a gut specialist, like GI doctor. And they were like, we have an experimental drug that you can try. And at this point we were like, whatever, sure, we'll try anything. And so I was a part of a study to see if this would like help my issues, and it worked. They called us up to see how I was feeling, and I was like, oh yeah, now that I think about it, I've been fine. And we found out after the study was over that it was a probiotic.
Oh my gosh.
Holy smokes.
And so it still kills me when I think about all those doctors that looked in my record and not one of them saw like, oh, she had 7 rounds of antibiotics last year. Maybe that's why she's having all these health issues. And I know Western medicine has its place, and I'm not knocking on Western medicine, but my personal journey has been rough with Western medicine.
Totally.
I just like, so it's really hard for me to trust what doctors say, because I've had a lot of doctors tell me some pretty ridiculous off the walls things. So
would this have been like late 1990s, early 2000s? I don't know your age, but I'm guessing by the time you're 9. Like, I'm just trying to get for perspective, because the general medical population wasn't even like aware of the microbiome like 20 years ago. You know, like that's kind of when they started to realize, oh, wait a minute. So this might have been that sweet spot of time where it wasn't really talked about in medical. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, it was, I'm born in 96. So it was like kind of mid 2000s.
Yeah.
I love it. It was like an experimental drug too, and it was a probiotic.
Literally amazing.
Is that for real what they said? They said experimental drug. Can you call a probiotic a drug? Like, what's the definition of a drug? Do we have that? Like,
it might have had other things in it. I don't know. I mean,
it's just so funny for me to consider.
Maybe it was a clinical trial, and they were trying to like isolate this one strain to see how it operated with. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but that is interesting that you would call it that.
So early on, you were sick a lot. So 7 years. You're 7 years old, and you got strep throat like 7 times. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Now, prior to that, was it strep throat a lot, or were you just getting like, what did sickness look like? You said everyone, Natalie's sick all the time. What did these sicknesses look like?
Flus, random hives, pretty much anything and everything. It was like if something could go wrong, I would have it.
Got sick. Huh?
And did you have siblings? Do you have siblings?
I have one younger sister. Yes. Okay.
And was she experiencing this too, or was it just you?
It was definitely more me. She never had like all the strep issues. She like if I got the flu or something, the whole family would go down. We'd all be sick. But she was definitely not as sick as me all the time. I want to say it was probably because I was the artsy stay at home, like to be inside and just craft. And she was just an absolute machine. For her first like 5 years of life, she bear crawled everywhere. And I swear she had a 6-pack in kindergarten. So
she was an active.
Like, crazy strong, very active. So that probably like, I don't know, burned off a lot of the sugar and helped her, fight through some of that.
That's really interesting.
So 8 years old, the antibiotics, 7 rounds to get through. And this is post tonsils taken up.
Yes.
Antibiotics.
No, so antibiotics were before that.
Okay, antibiotics, then tonsils taken out, and then for like, what was it when you were 9 years old that you had the stomach pains and the gut issues? Is that and then the probiotic?
Was somewhere around there.
Somewhere there. Okay.
Yeah.
And then do you recall kind of being in that state where like things kind of cleared up for you? Like, how old were you then?
So, from probably like, I know I was fine-ish, still getting sick a lot, but like the stomach issues went away. I remember I had random headaches and migraines. I got a spinal tap at one point to try to like relieve the pressure in my spine, because that might have been causing my headaches.
Wow.
That was after the hospital visit. Just like random issues that were kind of unexplained. But like overall okay-ish until like preteen years. And then that's when I started, still, I think the antibiotics, like I never quite fully recovered from that. And then when I started getting like preteen acne, they started prescribing more antibiotics for that. And then I figured out real fast, every time I take these antibiotics, my skin clears up temporarily. And so I, not knowing any better, became like addicted to like, I need more antibiotics. So I was like fully on board for that too. It's not just they were pushing that on me. I was like, let's do more antibiotics. I think I took doxycycline for like a year straight.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Help me. What is that?
It's an antibiotic. It's often prescribed, from my understanding, like if you get bit by a tick, they'll put you on like 2 months of doxy. And
just
that's
pill?
how
Is this
I've
just a
seen it.
pill
Yeah,
that we take? Okay.
but it's pretty. I mean, it's pretty like broad spectrum antibiotic.
And how are you getting? Is this something you just go buy at the store, or is it a prescription?
No, prescription.
And was this prescribed for acne? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Did I even know that you could get an antibiotic prescribed for acne?
I don't know. Did we talk about that in our skincare episode?
I can't even remember. That's crazy. And so that would cause a momentary clearing of acne or breakouts of some kind, and then you just would so for a year straight. And did you see any negative symptoms from that at all, or?
Oh yeah, but I mean, I don't remember a whole lot of them because at this point, like as a teenager, my mind was so focused on like I just want to look good. Like,
yeah,
that was all I cared about. So and then after the ups and downs of antibiotic use for skincare, at some point after going to a dermatologist, they put me on Accutane. So then, and I think I was like 14 when I was put on Accutane, and at that time, it was required that you also be on birth control.
Oh wow! Because they don't want to risk you getting pregnant while on Accutane.
Yes, it causes insane birth defects. So every single month, I would have to call, or they would call me, I think, and I would have to like verbally sign over the phone that I was using 2 forms of contraceptive. So as a 14-year-old, it was considered like birth control and abstinence were my 2 forms of birth control.
Oh my!
And you have to sign that you're doing that in order to get the prescription every month.
Goodness gracious. So hold on. So it's like a known fact that Accutane can cause birth defects and
yes.
Wow. Is Accutane still used today?
It is. I guess I don't fully know is Accutane an antibiotic? What is it? Do you know? What the class of drug?
Only it was like a super, super highly concentrated form of vitamin A that like dries up your skin. But
we're gonna Google. We're gonna Google it, friends, because I need to know what Accutane
how does one, like, did you apply to be on Accutane? How did we get to that point where it was because you just kept going in and saying, hey, I'm having trouble?
Yeah, I don't think there was a lot from my primary doctor to the dermatologist. I think the dermatologist was like, well, your regular doctor has given you all these antibiotics. And I think actually I'd already been on birth control before that to try to clear up my acne. So they were like, we've tried all these things. It's not working. I think I had like a couple rounds of topical, just absolute craps smeared on my face every night, and just made my skin super angry too. So they were like, yeah, there's not really anything else to try.
The birth control, the purpose of that is like a hormone suppressant.
No, it's to avoid pregnancy because
I know that much, but I'm saying for acne. Yeah.
It's basically
like if you're doing it for acne, you're using it because it's supposed to suppress hormones in some capacity, which is in some capacity believed to give you breakouts.
Yes, and I did not know that they so severely wanted to prevent pregnancy. You are right, by the way, which I wasn't doubting you. I was just wondering if there was more to the story. It's like a really high dose vitamin A, which makes sense because vitamin A toxicity does cause birth defects in children. So all of this is clicking. I'm learning so much from your story, Natalie. And I just think it's interesting that I'm sure you feel this now. I'd love to hear like what your mom would say like about all of this, going through this, walking this journey with you. But everything that starts in the gut, man, it impacts everything. It's like the roots of all of our health. And you saw what that kind of pulling that lever does every time you take an antibiotic or every time you would have these symptoms. Then it's like it all starts in the gut for you, and I think that's true of most people. So it's interesting to like hear how that played out in your life.
So continuing the story, you're on Accutane, and what was next? How did that play out? Where does the journey take us next?
I think I didn't finish the full 6 months. I went like 5 months, and I started having side effects, like really bad migraines. And I don't remember what all the side effects that I experienced were. I just remember them going, ooh, yeah, we better take her off because this is not good. But my skin cleared up for a long time. Like it was okay. I got through high school, feeling very subconscious about my weight. I thought that the birth control made me gain weight, which it probably did. But looking back, like, it was ridiculous. It was fine. It was normal teenage girl emotions. But yeah, I think at some point in high school, I started connecting food mentally to just like its calories. And so I'm just supposed to eat less and move more, and that's it. So yeah, there was no real thought about the quality. So I tried to work out. I was never really into fitness at all growing up. It was always like the worst day of the year was when we had to do the little like 1 mile run around the church that we used as a school. It was like, oh no. And then everyone's going to make fun of me because I'm walking. I hated that. But in high school it was like, oh, I better make myself do this so that, you know, I'm not fat. And then it was just like trying to eat less as much as possible. But I think the thing that saved me was really my mom, imparting the importance of protein. I am so thankful for that. I could have ended up in a very bad place if she wasn't so like always pushing the protein on us. She was like hypoglycemic. So she was like, would not put any food in her mouth if there wasn't protein with it. So that was just kind of like so in the back of my mind all the time. I didn't even like think about that. So that kind of stuck with me. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I know, somewhere in like last 2 years of high school, I remember going paleo for a couple months. That was
Classic.
like, yeah, all of my friends were like, what are you, caveman? That's so dumb. But I do remember like I felt better for a while.
Yeah.
There were like random things that I started sleeping better. I had more energy. I did struggle with fatigue, like all through high school. I would come home from school and take like a 4-hour nap, and then wake up and it would be dark and I'd eat some dinner and then I'd go back to sleep. And I remember like never having time to do my homework. So I would go to class and like I'd go to first period class and then go to the bathroom during class, and I'd be like in the bathroom stall doing my homework for the next period.
Oh my gosh.
Because like I was sleeping all day when I wasn't in school. So that was like the only time I would get it done. So
where was the inspiration for paleo? How did you even learn about it, hear about it? I didn't hear about paleo until I met Elizabeth. And
really?
I don't remember hearing about it. I mean, I'm just curious.
I think it was a blog that was talking about, it was like a 30-day challenge. That was what it was. And it was like 30 days of workout videos along with like a meal plan. So it was very much like only to look a certain way. It wasn't to feel better. And I did notice, that was the first time I noticed, okay, but I do feel better. I have more energy. But it wasn't great. It was better, but not great. Because, you know, it was still like paleo could be a rotisserie chicken from the grocery store, which is cooked in seed oils and sitting in a plastic bag for 6 hours. So, you know, it was a slight improvement.
Right. What else as a teen was influencing your view of food and health?
It was a very social thing, and I felt a lot of shame around trying to eat better. Like all of our friends after class would go sit and hang out at McDonald's, or Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. And it was like when I made the choice to start eating paleo and I wanted to lose weight, and it was like, no, I'm not eating that stuff.
It's isolating.
Like, yeah. He was like, you're so weird. Like, what is wrong with you? So that's really the only thing I remember. It was just like, I have to do this because I'm broken. Like there's something wrong with me that I have to eat this way versus all my friends who are normal and they can eat whatever they want.
I bet you a lot of people feel that way. I can totally see that. So after paleo and you're really making these connections, how then did your view of food and health continue to evolve?
So I think it got put on the back burner because I launched myself into my culinary desires. It was like the way I eat was one part of my life and the way I cook was another part of my life. And I was super passionate about cooking and cooking food for other people, but it was like, that's not like the same food I eat and it's totally separate. So I decided that I wanted to test out the waters and like culinary as a career. And so I started working at a Hawaiian fusion restaurant, which was super fun. Learned how to make sushi. And
so back of the house then. You were back of the
Yes.
house at this Hawaiian fusion restaurant. What kind of food were they churning out?
Sushi, all sorts of like grilled fish. It was like a steakhouse kind of.
California is just so much cooler. I walked out of high school, or in high school, was working at IHOP, and I was making pancakes. And so Cincinnati is just like low key lame. And she's like, "Yeah, just do this. This is a Hawaiian fusion restaurant, you know, making sushi."
So much more refined.
It's actually, have you heard of Roy's Hawaiian Fusion?
No.
Roy's?
That was the restaurant. It was started by Roy Yamaguchi.
Oh, okay.
When I started working there, he had sold it. So I don't remember what company bought it, but yeah.
That's cool.
It was really fun.
Amazing.
I loved it, which was part of the problem, because what happened next was I just launched myself. Like, I work like 10 hours and I'd come home at like 1 a.m. and I'd be like, "Mom, look what I learned how to make today." And then I'd be in the kitchen making it for my family. And I just could not get enough. I was so excited, so driven. It was like the first time I'd ever felt like, this is my place. I can just like do something that makes other people, like brings other people joy. And as part of why I love cooking is because it's such a universal language. Like, maybe it's the introverted homeschooler in me, but it's like saying I care about you. You can't mess that up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, no matter what, somebody's going to receive that and it's going to bring joy. And so I just loved it so much. I found another restaurant to work in. And so for a while, I was working in both of them at the same time. And then I started taking on private chef clients, like going into families' homes and cooking for them.
Oh, fun.
And I started cooking a lot, like for specific food allergies. So I learned how to do that. But yeah, I think at one point I was working like 90 hours a week.
Wow.
Like, I would wake up at like 5 a.m. and then go to work, and I'd come home, fall into bed, and sleep like 3 hours
Oh
to
my
get up and do it all
gosh.
over again. But I was just like riding the high. I was so excited. I burnt out real fast. It didn't last long. But I would make myself a pot of coffee for my station in the kitchen at the beginning of my shift and just put the pot there. I drank the whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
Like the whole 12 cups. And at the end of the night, to get me through the last little bit, I'd take a couple shots of espresso.
Oh my gosh.
I'd go home, sleep 3 hours, do it all over again. And I remember when I quit, I was so burnt out. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to take a break. I decided I was going to join the Navy. And
for your break?
yeah. Good point.
So go ahead and join the Navy.
I just need to relax.
I need to get some rest.
I need to get some. I've been working real hard. I
That's so
think I'm
funny.
going to go into the U.S. military.
You've heard it here first. If you're feeling burnt out and tired, join the Navy.
Join the Navy.
Actually, boot camp did kind of feel like a rest a little bit.
Oh, that's an indicator though of how hard you are working yourself. And you're what? Were you like late teens, early 20s at this point? Like,
I was 20.
okay, yeah. I mean, hopefully you were resilient in that phase, but like that is a lot for a 20-year-old.
I will say, if I ever get the chance, and I've said this before, I would kill to have a couple of months, or even like a couple of weeks, or just a
Working,
couple
like,
of nights,
in the restaurant.
just to get back behind just in the back of the house, just the energy. It is absolutely. There's something about it where when
I believe it.
you're in the hustle of the kitchen, it's just pure chaos. And I'll say you're like completely stressed out in the moment. You're not happy.
This is why you love
But,
the
like,
show The Bear.
I love it so much.
It's like so visceral.
Excellent content. Just so good. So
Not
good.
kid friendly. Don't watch it.
Oh my gosh. So good news is, right, in the midst of this trying time, you've absolutely equipped yourself to, like, you never feel like this lack of confidence of, can I make this food?
Yeah.
Right. I just feel like there's got to be something that you feel like you've earned there of, man, I'm never walking into a situation and worried about preparing a meal.
Capability.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you join the Navy, right? And then
Yes.
what does that look like? Like, what was your thought process there? Walk us through it.
Well, like I said, our family dinners were always, conversations. Those conversations were always history, politics. My dad praised like service members as the highest order. Like every single Memorial Day, he made us watch like all the Mel Gibson movies.
Oh my gosh.
I love it.
So
Yes.
it's like, Like, oh, this is going to make my dad proud. This is going to be like, I get to serve my country. And I just wanted to prove to myself I could do it.
Yeah.
And I think I got the confidence working in a kitchen because it was like, I learned that I was addicted to adrenaline and that feeling of like, you know, just accomplishing things. And, you know, my favorite nights in the kitchen were when it was slow and they'd send everybody home and it'd be like me and the chef and the one other guy. And all of a sudden it gets super busy and it was just nuts. Like, and then you have the nightmares of the ticket machine the next day, but oh, it was so good. I just loved it. And so it was like, I can do anything. And so I was like, I'm going to join the Navy. And I didn't want to join for a culinary job because I didn't want to be peeling potatoes on a ship for 5 years because I didn't want to kill my passion for being in the kitchen.
It's not great. Not a great
I
culinary
actually had
scene.
a friend who worked on a ship and he was like, do not become a culinary specialist. Come to San Diego. Because I actually was going to do that at first. He said, come to San Diego. I'm going to take you on a tour of the ship and introduce you to some culinary specialists. And I met them and immediately they were like, don't do this. Oh, absolutely not. Like, okay, smokes. Won't do that. But I had a couple months in between when I quit in the kitchen and like doing all my private catering stuff. And between when I left for boot camp. And in that time, I spent a lot of time working on my Blazer with my dad. And so I liked, you know, tinkering with my car and, you know, the mechanics and stuff. So I thought that'd be fun. So I don't know if you've heard of the Seabees, John Wayne and the Fighting Seabees. It was a construction battalion formed by the Navy because in World War I, all of their construction force was getting shot at overseas. And they're like, okay, we can't have this. We can't put civilians out there and we can't arm civilians. So they created a like armed like construction force in the Navy. So that's the Seabees. And our slogan is like, we build, we fight. I haven't actually fought, but that's what we do. And so cool. The Seabees are made up of like 7 different rates. And mine specifically is construction mechanics. So I work on like the bulldozers and tracked equipment and stuff like that. So
wow, that's so cool. You're such a jack of all trades. I'm like so impressed. I'm like, she can cook, she can do mechanics. What else can she do?
So in the Navy, so you've been in the Navy, you're still in the Navy, right? So but that doesn't bring us entirely up to current day with your story. So in the Navy, what did your time there look like from a health and food perspective? Anything notable, things you've learned, anything like that?
Oh, I was so sick. I was super sick in boot camp. I got a job in my division. When you're in boot camp, you can get like specific jobs. You might be in charge of laundry. You might be in charge of, you know, various things. Well, I got the job of yeoman, and the RDC, it's like the Navy's version of like your drill instructor, told me, if you go to medical, we're going to fire you from this job. But if you keep this job through the rest of boot camp, you get automatically promoted at the end. So I went in E1 and I came out of boot camp in E3. And so I was like just determined. I was like, I'm not going to like fail this. So I didn't go to medical the whole time I was in boot camp. And I was super sick when I showed up at my first at A school, which is where you learn how to do your specific job. I was so sick that the senior chief on the quarterdeck was like, told the doo-doo driver, just take her to the hospital right now. And then for the first month of classes, the instructor just told me, like, you just sleep in the back, because if you're awake and you're coughing, you're going to disrupt the whole class. So,
wow.
Goodness gracious.
And this isn't a setting where if you fall asleep, you're normally yelled at and you get in trouble. So he was like, no, you're fine. Just sleep. So I was really, really sick. I had bronchitis. I had a sinus infection. So it was more antibiotics. It was a mess.
Did you ever, I mean, at this point, you've got the track record of sickness, right? Like, was there any like feelings of defeat, or, I mean, like, how did you feel?
I just thought, like, this is who I am. Like, I just told people, I have the worst immune system.
I used to say that too. I used to tell people I have a really bad immune system, and you just kind of get used to it. You almost like, 1, speak it over yourself, and 2, you're like, yeah, it's just kind of, I get sick a lot. Isn't that funny how we just justify it? We just brush it off as if it's totally like normal.
The only reality we've ever known. So
yeah.
So you're sleeping in class and you're getting over bronchitis, sinus infections, etc. I assume at some point things cleared up and started to look a little bit more normal. I'm working us towards when you have your kind of first encounter with, I'm going to call it, the in quotations, like real food, like how you, like your point of market entry into the kind of real food game, if you will. When does that come? Are we getting close to that? Or are we, is there, please keep me going here. So you're getting through bronchitis and through school and through, within the Navy. And what's next?
We got to fast forward through the next year and a half. There was a lot. I connected with my husband long distance. We got married after I finished A school. We were still long distance while married. He came out to visit me once, and I got pregnant 3 months after we got married.
Nice.
And we were still not co-located. The Navy moved me to Hawaii at that point, and him. He left on deployment, so he came back from deployment right when our son was born, and we had to learn how to be roommates, husband and wife, and parents all at the same time. We had only spent a cumulative 6 weeks in person together at that point. It was wild. So there's a lot going on. Food was so far back. It was I just eat to stay alive. My pregnancy was rough. I lost a lot of weight because I had really bad morning sickness. And it was literally just whatever I can choke down that I won't throw up. And then kind of same after that. And then sometime around beginning of 2020, my dad and my aunt went carnivore.
Oh, wow.
And I can remember telling them, that is the stupidest thing ever. You're going to give yourself heart disease. That is so dumb. You can't eat all that meat and expect to be okay. And then I don't know why this happened, but one day I was you know what? I can't criticize them if I have no experience and I don't know anything about it. So I got the book, The Carnivore Code by Dr. Paul Saladino.
Classic.
And I read it. And I was you know what? I'm going to try this. So for 6 straight months, I ate fully carnivore.
All right, walk me through fully carnivore, because I've talked to some people recently where they're I do carnivore, and it's kind of But what did fully carnivore look like for you?
A pound of beef in the morning, usually slow cooked chuck roast. And I'd make a butter hollandaise with the butter I'd skim off the top of the crock pot that the meat had cooked in, and I'd turn that into hollandaise.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was super good. Top with a fried egg. So that was my breakfast, a minimum of a pound of meat, and then I'd get home and cook a 1 pound ribeye and eat that for dinner.
Dang. No, so absolutely no vegetable.
So just ribeyes, daily.
Yes. Yeah,
sounds
we
nice.
only had one baby, and we were both working, so that was kind of feasible at that time.
Yeah.
It's not feasible anymore.
So it was just beef then. It was no other meat.
And eggs. She was rolling with eggs and beef.
Okay.
So no fruit, no carbs, no.
Nope.
Wow. Just meat and eggs and fat.
So what was your experience on that?
So I remember I got kind of into fitness finally for the first time, really in this kind of period. Started actually enjoying strength training. And because I had tried it in the past, and it was well, I'm trying so hard, I'm not getting any stronger. And this was the first time, because I think I was eating enough protein, where it was wow, I'm getting stronger. This is awesome. And I shed all the baby weight super fast. And so for a very short period of time, I was this is it. I found the answer. This is what everyone needs to do. And I felt great. And then, that didn't last. You can't eat 0 carbs for 6 months and expect to be okay. So, and on top of that, COVID hit, and I was just kind of stuck at home. And I used that time to do a lot of experimental cooking and staging food and taking photos of it. My baby was super easy, so he just kind of chill on the floor while I was cooking all day, and it was a great time. But there was this really sad part of me where it was well, I can only eat this, but I want to make this food for other people. Yeah. And it was how I can't do this. I can't do this forever. I can't serve other people and then not be able to taste it. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so then for a while it was well, I guess cooking can't be my thing. I can't. I was well, that made me too sad. So I couldn't figure it out. And so then I just gave up and just went back to eating how I had been eating. And I gained a ton of weight because it was my body was oh my God, carbs. please. So
what kind of carbs did you get back into initially? Like what when you say back to that I was eating, give me some examples.
I tried to like pace myself and just introduce like zucchini, just some vegetables at first. But it was like the second I ate carbs again, my body was just like, okay, cool.
Turn up, yeah.
Yeah. And so then it went from that to just eating pasta, and it was mostly homemade pasta, not because I thought homemade pasta was better. It was just like I enjoyed making pasta. So yeah.
I dig that. Okay, so we're jump back into carbs. And so would you say you were like overeating it, or do you think that just because you introduced them at all, you just gained a bunch of weight? I'm just curious.
Yeah, okay, it wasn't a bunch of weight. It was just maybe like 20 pounds.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it felt like a lot because I was starting to really want to get into bodybuilding. So, and put a lot of focus on that. And then, yeah, at this point I discovered Mind Pump. And so I was really trying to strength train as much as possible. But yeah, I left that kind of period of my life knowing that like red meat held a lot of the answers, but not sure how to implement it. Like I know I can't only eat red meat, but everybody tells me if I'm eating a lot of red meat with other foods, that's bad. Like that's the standard American diet, and that's going to give me all these issues. Like you can't have high fat and high sugar. So like I didn't know how to do it. So I just kind of like left that. And I think I tried to eat more red meat than I had before, because growing up as a kid, I don't think we ever had red meat, like ever. It was like on Valentine's Day, my dad would make the filet mignon, and then that was it. It was a lot of pork chops, a lot of chicken. So yeah, it was like, okay, I should probably eat more red meat, but that was about it. That was the only piece I had. And then COVID happened. To me. So it was like 2 years after that. I got pregnant with my second, and I got
You're
COVID
still
while I was
in the
pregnant.
Navy this whole time?
Yes, still in the Navy. I was pregnant with my second, and I got COVID twice. And then, so my first round of COVID, I remember the doctors just telling me like, sorry, can't take any like drugs because you're pregnant. So have fun. It's going to be miserable for you. We don't know how to help you. And something clicked in my brain where I was like, I can't trust you to help me get over COVID. How am I going to trust you to help deliver my babies? So that sent me down the whole home birth route trail.
Oh, wow.
Okay. This was the birth of Crunchy Natalie.
Carnivore to home birth. I like to see that. That's a very interesting, she's bridging the gap. I'm in.
Yeah. So
I love it.
Then I was like, okay. I started listening to all these home birth podcasts, and I started following Emily Stanwyck. She's helped found BirthFit.
Oh, okay.
She's a postpartum doula.
Beautiful.
And she mentioned carnivore-ish on Instagram. She was talking about how she eats, and that was like, you eat a lot of meat, but you also eat, fruits and some vegetables, and so that then took me to revisit Paul Saladino, and he had like kind of revamped his message, and he's like, it's like animal based now. You can have fruit, you can have honey, and so I was like, okay, maybe I'll try that. I got COVID again, and then I got E. coli from some pho that I ordered while I was pregnant.
No,
lost like 10 pounds in a week. It was awful. I was clinging to life. Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
So, yeah, what's still wild to me is how like I went into my second pregnancy after having a not great hospital experience with my first. Still, like nothing was waking me up. I was still like, yeah, I guess I'll do that again. And then it was COVID that was like, that's what woke me up. It was like, wow, I'm not doing that again. So that's when my husband was not down for a home birth. So we compromised with the birth center.
I understand.
It's 1.5 miles from my house. We still didn't make it there in time. I actually had a car baby.
Oh,
no way.
Yeah. So
hey, you tell them like, listen, you didn't want a home birth, and we did it in the car. So it's
compromise.
Yes.
Compromise.
Well, my only goal for that birth was to show him that like, hey, birth is like normal, and for number 3 we can have a home birth, and it worked. So number 3 awesome. We did have a home birth.
No kidding.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but so let's see. So I was then trying to eat like animal based, and it did work really well for healing me from like E. coli just destroying me.
Yeah.
I do feel like in that time I needed the most nutrient dense diet possible because like I was trying to heal from that, and I was in my 3rd trimester, and so I do think that helped a lot in my postpartum recovery and just healing my body and feeding a baby and all those things. So I did that, but in that kind of time period of postpartum with my 2nd, eating animal-based, my Instagram algorithm started to change. And that's when I found you guys.
Fun.
And all of these accounts, it's like the more crunchy corner of Instagram. And
welcome.
Thank you. I learned how to make sourdough from you guys, from your guide.
So fun.
And sourdough is now like, it's like marks this transfer. It was like a change. It was the thing that taught me balance, because it went from like, I can only eat meat and honey and fruit, to now it's like the possibilities are endless. And I could actually do this and serve other people food that I enjoy creating. It was like, it brought the artistry back to food that I was missing with animal based. And it was like,
so good. Yeah. I love that.
That was like life changing for me. And so, yeah, that's when, actually, I don't think I've really been sick since I had that round of E. coli in 2022.
Wow. So you've got a 2-year streak. Wow. Yes. A year and a half, maybe.
Yes.
Incredible.
Since she was like 6, it's like, it's a long...
Girl, congratulations on your longest health streak ever, probably.
So three. So does that bring us up to speed here? So kind of like so we can get into kind of what your daily routine looks like now. You got 3 kids.
Well, yes. So Natalie, for those who don't know, when she filmed her like message telling us a bit about her story, because obviously we've heard some of this in your intro, you were currently pregnant and you were like, I'm preparing for my home birth. And I was like, girl.
And clearly we are very on top of things and get around to this stuff very quickly, because she
wanted to give you enough time.
Now has 3 kids.
To have your baby. Okay. Things move slow around here. And 6 months later, here we are having a conversation. So yeah, I want to hear about today and how you view food. I mean, you just said it so beautifully about sourdough bringing back the artistry, and I totally agree. I was going to ask you how, as a culinary person, you would mentally battle with that really restrictive diet, because I can imagine it would be hard when you see food as an art. To then limit it to just meat would be really, really challenging. And now you're like, wait, I can find ways to produce all kinds of food within the realm of real food. You know what I'm saying? So I'd love to hear more about how you view that today.
Well, when I found the Weston A. Price Foundation, it's part of that Instagram algorithm shift.
Yep.
And I don't remember where I saw it. It was like, they said no food should be off the table, like foods that come from nature, if it's prepared properly. And that message, it was like, yes, like that's what I was designed for, because there's no limit for me for the amount of effort I will put in to food. Yeah. Like that's not the problem. The problem was like knowing how, or like feeling good while doing it. Like I wasn't not preparing food because it's like, oh, I don't have time, I don't want to do that. Like I love doing that, but it was like, I can't, because I can't eat this stuff. So it was like, if I just know how to make it so that I can eat it, oh my gosh, the world's my oyster. I can do anything now. So it was amazing.
So we've kind of touched on a few of those ways you're implementing I'm going to call it a real food approach into your daily life now. Some of those being sourdough, bread making and or other baked goods. Additionally, we're having a protein focused, diet, it sounds like, and we did a home birth, right? So we're really moving in more of a natural, kind of direction with our life. What else day to day are you guys, doing in your home that you've found to be beneficial or that you really enjoy?
Aside from food?
No, within your food kind of realm. Is there other things that you've done?
Yeah, not buying organic snacks, making everything, or just like keeping it simple. Like the kids get kind of like just like a charcuterie for lunch. Super easy. So they get protein and real food for lunch. Our breakfasts are, and I told my husband at some point we're going to have to get chickens, because it's just me, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and the 3 of us will eat 10 eggs for breakfast.
Yep. Time for a chicken.
This is true.
Yes. And yeah, just it's a lot of thinking ahead and planning,
Mm-hmm.
and structuring my day so I have time to plan that. So both of the little ones take their naps at the same time in the afternoon every day, and that's usually when I'll be able to prep things ahead so that I know I have real food and time for that, so I don't have to fall back on shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that be like starting a pot of bone broth to turn into soup, or stuff like that.
The culinary background is a major benefit in this realm.
Huge.
I would just tell everyone out there that, man, if you can spend some time really learning to cook, it is such a accelerant
I agree.
on this journey. Kids, how have your kids responded, done well with the food that you've been serving them, generally in good health, these sorts of things?
Yeah. My kids haven't gotten sick, I guess, since we all got COVID. Yeah. So they've been doing great too.
That's awesome.
My oldest will eat pretty much anything. Cause he was getting solids right when I was going through that like super experimental cooking phase during COVID, staying at home, make everything, and making pasta from scratch and like mushroom risotto with Parmesan for lunch. And he was living it up.
Yeah. He had a good life.
Yes.
That's amazing.
My second is a little bit more picky because he was going through his introducing solids as I was going through the animal-based craze. So I think the only foods he ate, like his first food was pureed oxtail and egg yolks.
Beautiful. Such a Weston A. Price thing, by the way. Congrats. Good job. That's great.
And to this day, his favorite foods are like steak and berries.
Heck yeah.
That's all he wants to eat. Yeah.
That's great, though.
He's eating your wallet, but he's healthy, right? So I feel that. I know that.
Well, I want to get back to that because you said, you don't eat organic snacks. You used air quotes in that. So for people just listening, I know what you're saying, but like, I want to talk about that. As a busy mom of 3 kids, there is this trap behind like, oh, I'll just grab these organic fruit snacks or these organic granola bars or these organic chips. 1, they're so stinking expensive. 2, there's like no nutritive value. Like you're pretty much just buying entertainment at that point. Like the kid's just going to eat it and be quiet for maybe 5 minutes. But it's taken a while to feel comfortable not leaning on those things. Do you know what I mean? So what encouragement do you have for maybe someone that's like, oh, I'm in that phase right now where like I switched from buying the regular graham crackers to the organic graham crackers, but then I need to move on to like, I don't even need the graham crackers. You know what I'm saying? How does that play out in your life right now?
I think that the most important thing is really nutrient dense foods for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you just don't need it. I mean, as adults, we don't need to constantly snack on things, and kids don't need it either. I mean, there are times when maybe they didn't eat their lunch, and so now they're super hungry an hour before dinner. That's an opportunity for them to learn they should probably eat their lunch next time. And I'll tell them, that's great that you're hungry. You're going to eat your dinner really well then.
Kids love that, by the way.
Yeah.
They love it when you tell them, I'm so happy you're hungry. I'm hungry. I'm so happy because dinner's coming. So everybody didn't eat lunch. Tough. Yeah, it's tough.
Same thing works for nighttime too. I'm so tired. That's so great. That means you're going to go right to sleep.
Or I'm bored. Oh, I'm so happy you're bored. You're going to find a really fun game to play here soon. I'm sure.
So when we talk about moving to this world, so the transition, I'm going to call it, the transitionary phase of, kind of more traditional eating into, we're going to call it, Natalie's crunchy phase. I think that's what she said. Is that what she said? Anyways,
yes.
What challenges came with that?
My husband he's still, that poor man. I am not the woman he married. On a daily basis, I'm like, babe. And he's like, oh God, what is it now? We need to throw out all of our LED light bulbs. He's like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
So many ladies right now listening to this are going like, holy smokes.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah. He never knows what's going to be next. And so, yeah, he's been a saint. He's gone on this journey with me, and he's accepted the grounding sheets on our bed and all the things. So
is he he sounds receptive then to what you're bringing to the conversation?
I think it's mostly just picking his battles.
Oh, okay.
Well, and not to get too into it, I certainly don't want to open any potential wounds here. But what is the typical process for implementing a new kind of decision like that look like? And if he were to pick a battle, because I'm sure there's so many people out there that are married and they're trying to figure out where their place is. And Elizabeth and I were actually just talking about this, so we'll happily share our kind of dynamic. But what does that look like for you guys? So a new learning comes up, and we're constantly learning. We're constantly implementing new things. And we'll get there, kind of like what's Natalie learning and getting into these days. But what does that process for you and your family look like when you have something new that might be health or nutritionally related? How do you tackle those kind of challenges?
I've learned that it's important for me to come with the solution first before the problem. Because he's very he wants to fix things. I think most men are.
Yeah.
And if I pitch it as there's this problem first, he'll just hear me getting stressed or freaking out. And he's like, oh, I got to solve this and tamper it down, kind of squash it. And then I'm like, well, you're not hearing me. So if I start off saying, hey, I think, our son's allergies are kind of a problem, he's going to be like, he's fine. Stop being dramatic about it. But if I say, hey, I think we should introduce more raw milk into him, our baby's getting raw milk. I think he could get some raw milk too, because he's having all these allergies. I think that would help. That's a lot better. If I already have a solution in my mind, I need to start with that first, because it's just going to be messy communication otherwise.
Was there a conversation of, hey, I think we should change over to raw milk?
Yes.
How did that go? What did that look like?
It started because, I was working a lot with my second. He totally lost interest in nursing around 9 months old, just because I was at work and the bottle was faster. And just, I had done exclusive pumping in the past. All three of my kids have had tongue ties. So this has been a whole journey with exclusive pumping and with working. That's just, it's doable, but it's hard. And by the time he was 9 months, it was okay, you'll be fine with raw milk from a cow.
Yep.
And I'm so glad that I was in that space where I knew about that in order to implement that. My oldest had never had raw milk before. We went straight from, he had a much different childhood. Those firstborn kids, they are the guinea pigs.
I know.
He got and I never knew about the tongue ties with him. So he had gotten just regular formula, whatever, the cheapest thing we could afford, corn syrup and whatever. And we went straight from that to Fairlife, I think, the ultra pasteurized, and that's all he had. So he definitely had more allergies and stuff, and got sick a lot more.
But you're in California, right? So you can get raw milk at a Whole Foods market or just at the grocery store. You can just roll in. There's not this weird, oh, that's illegal. We can't.
That's interesting. So you might not have even had to bring it up as a, hey, significant other. What's your husband's name?
Carl.
Hey, Carl, we're going to be buying raw milk now, and I'm sourcing it from this farm down the street. And I had to, invest in a cow in order to get it, and I'm going to feed it to our kids, because that's how our conversation.
The FDA tells me it's not safe.
Yeah. So I can remember it like it was yesterday, when Elizabeth came to me and she said, "Hey, I'm going to start using raw goat milk
to make homemade formula."
And if I'm honest, when she said the words, I didn't even know what she was talking about. And I was like, "Okay, whatever, go for it." And then she stopped me and she was like, "I don't think you understand." Because I just didn't care at all. I was like, cool, whatever, sweet. We're doing raw milk now. And I just kind of also trusted that my wife wasn't going to try to hurt my kids, I guess, a little bit. I was I wasn't really worried that she was going to be, I'm going to poison them. So she stopped me and she said, technically it's illegal for me to buy this in a store, but I'm getting it this way. And I was like, well, why is it not allowed to be bought in stores? She's like, well, because the government thinks that it's bad for you. And I was like,
in some states.
And I was like, is it bad for you? And she was like, I don't think so. And I was like, do you know so? She's like, well, I'm going to buy it, but I'm going to drink it first. And I was like,
okay. I had done a lot of research. Okay.
And she had, and I'm saying it very short. I'm really just rushing through that. But that was kind of like the kind of spark notes of how that looked for us. And I'll never forget it. She brought home like these weird plastic labelless jugs of goat milk.
Yep.
And she looked at me, she's like, I'm drinking it. And I was like, okay. And she drank it. And she's like, you want some? I was like, no. I was like, I don't drink milk regardless. I was like, I don't want this, whatever this is. And she like waited for a while. She's like, I think I'm okay. Like, I think we're gonna do this.
It's true.
So
it's true.
That's how
but
it went.
It's got to be a different conversation in California when you literally roll in.
Didn't think of that.
And it's on the shelf, and you're like, okay, cool. I'm not crazy. I'm not a crazy person.
Didn't even think of that. Yeah.
I think the biggest pushback from him was like, why are we spending $18 on a gallon of milk? That's insane.
Yeah.
And still, like the other day, it was like yesterday, my husband was like, our kids are older now. Do we have to still give them the raw milk? Like, do we have to be spending $18 a gallon of milk? I'm like, yes, we do.
Yeah, it is a commitment.
Yeah.
The power of investing in your kids can just set them up in a way that allows them to have success.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the return on investment that I continue to tell myself is, man, if I'm investing in my kids' education and equipping them to, be awesome swimmers and physically active so that they're, capable and nutritionally, provided for so that they are warding off, illness and other kinds of developmental issues. It's like, that's kind of what I'm in for. And so totally agree with that. I think keeping them on the train is pretty awesome. Any other challenges you kind of got into? I know that you were kind of on there and I kind of interrupted. So that's where we are. But any other challenges that came with making the shift?
I think so. I think for the most part, he's going to let me do what I'm going to do just because he knows that this is such a important thing for me. He knows about my childhood and why I'm so passionate about that. I think it's really important that my kids see their bodies as in being intelligently created and not broken. And I never want them to think like, well, it's just how it is. I want them to feel healthy. And, you can still be thankful and worship an intelligent God if you're sick, but it's like, you should still know that the human body was an intelligent design. So I think that's important.
I love it. Is Carl in the real food game too? Is he wake up in the morning crushing the raw milk and eating the eggs and the?
Yeah, he buys himself separate milk. He's not into raw milk. I think his eating has improved. There's some things where he'll come home from the grocery store and he'll proudly show me like, look, I read the label on this. And there's nothing he knows that anything with seed oils, I'll just squash it. I think a lot of it is just appeasing me. He's doing his best for me, but I think some of it's sticking. He's noticed some things about how he feels when he eats.
That's awesome.
Differently. So, but every time I think he's getting it. The other day there was a monster in the fridge. I'm like, what?
Like an energy drink?
Yeah. Hey. You know what? It's one step at a time. And I was behind Elizabeth, and I am always going to be behind Elizabeth. And so I was coming out of culinary school. So I went to culinary school and then I worked in restaurants and kitchens and dude, I lived with canola oil. It was just like what we used. And so when we got married, it was like, that was what I came into the family and had gone through culinary school, worked in restaurants, worked in food. Like it was just like my thing. So a lot of decisions naturally were just mine for the kitchen. So if we were buying oils at the store, I was like, yo, buy canola oils, low smoke point, high smoke point. We're able to, use lots cheaper. We can use it for everything. And then one day she was like, we're not buying the same way. And I remember there was definitely one time well into our journey that I brought home canola oil from the store. And Elizabeth looked at me, she's like, are you insane?
Garbage.
And she immediately threw it in the garbage. And I was like, we were out of oil and I just grabbed some. And she's like, have you not heard me talk at all? And anyways, so I empathize with the dudes out there. Love to see that he's getting after it too. That's awesome. I think there's definitely a performance mindset. Me as a man, I sense where when I'm eating really well and I'm fueling my body with the stuff that my body's created to be, metabolizing, I feel better. So.
I would say too, as encouragement to all the Carls out there, that Joey is a fan of the energy drink, and he has found several decent energy drinks that are like organic. This is a Riot.
Right here.
He's holding up right now. What's the one you got at Whole Foods the other night?
Let me read the ingredients. Filtered carbonated water, green tea, pineapple juice, mango puree, lime juice, green tea extract, chili pepper extract, and natural flavors. Okay. And then it says at the bottom, all organic ingredients.
All organic ingredients. Okay, that's not that bad.
I mean, it's probably not like making my life super much, like a ton better, but it's certainly,
it's a step
from like an energy drink perspective, a clean one.
How much is a Riot compared to like a Monster?
I don't know.
Significant price increase?
I don't know.
Anyways, there's a couple different brands. And I think I use that as an example to say, whatever your thing is, like Joey's thing used to be Flamin' Hot Cheetos. He was obsessed.
100%.
You know, you can.
Whole bag,
like scary for your intestines. You know what I'm saying?
Scary for everything.
Scary for everything.
Scary for everything.
But like usually and you could feel this way too, Natalie. Maybe there's some things that you're like, man, I really miss the Oreos. Usually there's a way to
Natalie was telling us earlier she loves Oreos.
Honor, I just pulled that out. Honor a craving that you've had, unless it's like absolute, like this thing doesn't exist in nature. There's no way to recreate it, you know, which I can't even think of an example, because even a Twinkie, you could make a delicious vanilla cake and get the same vibe. You know what I'm saying? So just as an encouragement. Now, sometimes it's back to that thing, like, oh, you switch from the graham cracker to the organic graham cracker, and then you're like, hey, the graham cracker's not even that good anyways. Like, or we only buy it when we do s'mores. Like, we shift in our real food journey, and that's why we call it a journey, because you're always moving forward, and it's not like all of a sudden everything you do is perfect.
Yeah.
And that's never the goal, right? The goal is to say, how can I equip my body so that I can do the things I'm called to do? Like, that's the whole point of living on earth and eating, honestly. And then there's like celebratory and there's other things too. But like, it's just, there's always maybe another option that you can dive into.
I love it. That's outstanding.
I wanted to ask you, Natalie, do you feel like you own the responsibility in your house when it comes to the foods that you guys eat as a family and nourishing your children? Are you owning that responsibility? Are you sharing it with your husband? What does that dynamic look like?
It's definitely mostly me. Especially I've been on maternity leave. And since I switched to a short command with this pregnancy, I've been working less. So it has definitely been more on me. It's always something I happily take that responsibility. Like, I want to. It was just in the past, there were times when my husband was working from home and I was not. And so he would have to do a lot of it. And he doesn't mind. He enjoys cooking also. Not as much as I do, but yeah. So, and as soon as I'm out of the Navy, I will be a stay-at-home mom. Super excited for that. So yeah,
sweet.
It'll definitely be all on me.
I think there's two ways to look at it, right? We can say, like, because I feel that too, like it's all on me sometimes. You know, Joey's a good cook, so he steps in. But I think there's a beautiful seamlessness in a family operation when you can identify, hey, one parent's going to take the lead in this situation. Doesn't mean that he can't ever come in for backup. Doesn't mean that he can't cook meals or grocery shop for you still on occasion. But like, to have one person identify their role, it just makes things more seamless. And then it allows you to come to him with like authority and say, hey, yeah, we're going to keep doing the raw milk for now. I'll let you know if I find new information and this changes, or I find a better option that's a little bit cheaper. But like, I'm wearing this hat right now. We can have conversations, but at the end of the day, decision falls to this, and here's why. And I just think I wanted to like call that out, because that's something Joey and I have been talking a lot about, of like, how do you avoid some of this tension in the real food space and in the real food journey as a family, because you need your family to be on board. And can you pinpoint a team captain when it comes to various parts of your life? So I think I'm with you there, and I feel that, like, I feel that burden as well, and it's a privilege, honestly. So
yes,
I dig it. Natalie, what are you learning? What are you getting into today? Where would you say you're heading on this journey?
Right now, well, I wanted to say that, like, the reason I fell in love with fitness is because it's that whole, I'm sure you've heard the saying, like, today's workout is tomorrow's warm up. And it's like, I think that applies to like this real food journey as well. And it's like the things that took up so much mental space to learn 6 months ago, it's just like what you do now. And so like
true.
it becomes just like a natural part of life. And so, and I know there's so many people who see me and like the foods I'm making and they're like, that's insane. Like I remember I was posting all of my postpartum food prep with my last baby, and I made like 60 freezer meals. And at one point I ran out of breadcrumbs for my meatballs, and it was like, oh, I gotta bake another loaf of bread to make breadcrumbs. And somebody was like, that's an insane thought process. Like I have never once run out of breadcrumbs and thought I need to bake more bread. Like I go to the store and buy more breadcrumbs, but I was like, no, you just bake another loaf of bread to make breadcrumbs, because I wanted them fermented. I wanted sourdough breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
That was just like, duh to me. And other people are like, you're insane. So the people who are at that point in their journey look at me and think I'm insane. It's like, that's just, it's your warm up right, or it's your workout right now, but it'll be your warm up later. And it's going to become easy. And they're so overwhelmed because like they see me do all the things, and they hear me talk like so passionately. And I know like you guys can speak passionately about it too. And I'm sure you have moments where people's eyes glaze over and they're like, I don't have the time and energy for all that. And it's like, it doesn't feel like a lot of energy for us because it's become our warm up. And so I feel like I'm in a place now where the food part is like the warm up. It's super easy, and I don't even have to think about it. It's just kind of like how I do life. And now I'm getting to put all my time and energy into like creative pursuits, even like the working out aspect. It's like just part of my routine. And now I get to like, I just learned how to use a sewing machine 2 weeks ago for the first time. And I'm like trying to make my own clothes now. Like, it's just, we were created for so much more than like obsessing about food all the time. Like,
so good. That is so wise. I'm just going to reiterate it and say it again because I'm so like stoked that this idea of you start with baby steps, and the first time you do something, you look up to someone or that's higher up on that ladder, or further up, and you think to yourself, I'm never going to be able to do that. There's just no way. I don't have the capacity. I don't have the margin in my life. The must be nice to have XYZ time off or whatever, right? It must be nice to have, I don't know what it is that must be nice to have, but I know that I can't do that, right? And there are ways to kind of break through some of those misconceptions in life, and it often starts by starting small. And you experienced this significantly when you did 75 hard, with this idea of working out twice a day or doing some kind of physical activity twice a day every day for 75 days. And it was like, is that possible? For a lot of people, they'd be like, there's no way that's possible. And when you go do it and you realize like, okay, well, it totally is. I can do this. And some things have to get shifted around. But after a while, some things start to become the normal. It's just the new normal. The new normal is, when we make snacks for our kids, they are charcuterie boards coming out of the fridge, right? Over the Vaughn household, right? Or it's for dinner time, we're introducing some kind of fermented food because that's just normal. That's what we do. Love that. So cool. Anything else as we kind of wrap up here, Natalie? Things that we maybe should have touched on that we didn't. Elizabeth, any questions you might have?
No, I've loved your story, and I think you're such an interesting person just in general. I've really enjoyed like this time that we've spent together. And I would love, any last encouragement for those, because my hope is when people hear these stories of folks who are in this community who are like, the whole thing is like just like you and me, you know what I'm saying? No, like no one in this room is like has this degree that sets us apart, that gives us a reason to be able to do the thing. We've stumbled our way through it, and we're here to tell you like it's worth the effort on the other side. It's like what I like to tell people. And just in your own words, like what encouragement would you give to folks as we're closing out who are in their own real food journey and they are feeling some of that?
I think that there's not enough emphasis put on mindset and in this whole thing. And I know, at least for me, and I don't know, this might sound harsh to other people when you're in that place of like, I can't do it, but like maybe the reason you can't do it is because you keep telling yourself you can't do it. And there's been a lot of times where I've had to like it, even if it still feels like I can't, if I just decide I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And you just do it.
Mm-hmm.
You just decide you're going to do it. You just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's just like, it takes that mental switch of
Mm-hmm.
just determination. But
Mm-hmm.
that takes practice. But I think the benefit is like that bleeds over into so many more areas of life. Like that's a skill that's going to get you through more than life than just like your eating and your diet. Like deciding that you're just going to stick to things and do them. It's like a skill that will get you through all sorts of hardship and all sorts of goals.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Right on. Natalie, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon. So thank you so much for being on the show and have an awesome day.
Thank you for having me.
See ya.